Today we'll be going over one bad perk on every killer in the game. I'm going to explain carefully on each perk on why it's bad for that specific killer. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Now for Trapper, the worst perk is Enduring. The main reason is because 1. Normally survivors pre-drop pallets against you, they don't really try to hit you with it. And 2, most importantly, if you have a trap on hand, what you can do is, this obviously happens like near the edge of the trap, but you can place a trap. You can start the animation of placing the trap, and especially with the add-ons that you can place traps faster, you can basically confirm a placement trap, or you can cancel it, which is a fast animation, and then kick the pallet. So for Trapper, Brutal Strength is actually good for him, because if you master this, it's like all the benefits of Enduring without equipping Enduring itself. For Wraith, I'll probably say the perk Agitation. Agitation allows the killer to, when they pick up, they move faster towards the hook. Now to be honest, as a Wraith, you don't really need this. Unless you're trying to do like a Starstruck build, obviously Agitation is good for you. But realistically, it does. The problem with Wraith isn't where to hook a survivor. Especially because you're invisible and your speed increases with certain add-ons when you go invisible. That's not the problem. You can be naturally slower. You don't need agitation for it. What you need to do is slow down the game while you're creating pressure. Now for Hillbilly, I say the worst one will be Corrupt Intervention. Corrupt Intervention blocks the furthest generators from your location. The reason why you don't want this is because survivors are going to split up more. With Hillbilly, the chain still can get you to point A to point B quickly. This is just going to make you do it more often. If you have perks that find survivors that are grouped up, will be Discordance and Lethal Pursuer, because you could be bothering as many survivors as possible, which is good for Hillbilly. Hillbilly is also good at snowballing, which Corrupt Intervention prevents. Since survivors almost spread out, the chances you having an early snowball, which is great for you, is going to be less. However, Corrupt Intervention is not a hard counter to Hillbilly, unlike other perks that we'll get into. Every time when you hook a survivor, Frack will activate. Then the next pallet or breakable wall that you break, survivor's aura 32 meters of your location will be revealed. The thing with Nurse is, you don't break pallets, you don't break breakable walls, you teleport through everything. Therefore, a perk that's going to make you stand still, basically breaking something that is useless to you, there's no point. Sometimes, honestly, good nurses, they use pallets against survivors, to be honest. So this perk is honestly just useless. Michael Myers, I say the worst would be Hex Haunted Ground. The reason why Hex Haunted Ground is bad is because this is a one-shot perk that you can't control. So if you tier 3, you one-shot a survivor, and then 10 seconds later, they cleanse Hex Haunted Ground, that's useless. It's the same effect stacking on top of each other. The survivors could never cleanse Hex Haunted Ground. It could just be an empty slot in your inventory. Or they cleanse it, but you're already in tier 3. It's too unpredictable to use consistently. A better perk would be Devour Hope, because you can control it when you need to. I said the Hag, honestly, is a good killer. There's not really a lot of bad perks on Hag that are strong by themselves. Most perks that are bad for Hag, the perks are probably not good themselves. But if I had to say, probably Thrilling Tremors. Thrilling Tremors is more of a perk to go find out where the survivors are and go after them. That's not what you want to do as Hag. You can't even do that as Hag. Hag, you want to defend an area. It doesn't matter if someone on the other side of the map doing a generator. You're not going to stop them. They will go do that generator regardless. So you having information about something that you don't care about does not matter to you. The Hag also doesn't really have any method to get survivors off gens. Like she's not like Doctor, she's not like Freddy that she can scare survivors off a generator, then block it with Thrilling Tremors. So it doesn't really matter. I say next is Doctor. Doctor, honestly, the worst perk with him would probably be Tinkerer. Doctor is a very tear radius killer. Doctor works by his tear radius. If sneak out on survivors, if you do a static blast and then Tinkerer activates, it goes straight to 0. You do have information that a survivor is on that generator. However, you're just an average 15 killer. Like, you don't really have mobility like that. So it's very unlikely that you're going to be close enough to interrupt the survivor with Tinkerer. You don't have mobility like that, so it doesn't really matter. Play with you is bad on huntress. The reason why is especially because you're 110 killer, especially as a 110 killer, you don't really have time to go find a survivor, leave the chase on purpose, find them again. Like that's just too long. Especially because you're a slower killer. Like, no, that's just not gonna work. Also, huntress dishes out attacks left and right. So the time that you invested getting played with your food stacks, you drain it in under 10 seconds the time you see a survivor that's not your obsession. So it's really just useless to you. For Leatherface, I say Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden's basically when you hop out a locker, the survivor gets exposed. This counters the one rare effect when survivors hop in a locker and then they perfectly get out, that you can't grab them, but you can't open them when they exit a locker. When a chainsaw happening, when you bump into it because they're inside the locker. You don't really need this. I'm gonna be honest, most people can't even do it like that. This is such like a rare time. The thing is with Bubba is like, you could honestly bait people. The thing is with Bubba is like, you can play around lockers and not have to use this perk. Like, let's say you're up against a good survivor, you charge up your chainsaw. Now you see a locker's ahead, and you also see a pallet ahead. But the locker is closer to the survivor than the pallet. Depending on the survivor, you could probably just wait and see what they do, cancel it, and then just grab them straight out before they even react. Next for Freddy Krueger, I would say overcharge. Failing any skill check will automatically wake Freddy up. Overcharge, that is the main whole point of the entire perk. You don't want to use overcharge. I better honestly just use Call of Brime. Way better. When you hit a good skill check, you actually find the survivor, which is honestly way better. Obviously, if you're doing red paintbrush, then this is completely useless because you don't have to deal with it. But if you don't, you shouldn't be using any skill check perks on Freddy if that's the case. Next is pick. I say the pick, honestly, it'd be discordance. With the pick, what's gonna happen is, ideally, you have survivor on hook, survivor searching the jigsaw boxes, survivor getting chased, and then the other survivor either doing a generator or going for the save. The survivors just don't have time to hop on a gen together like that. There's obviously the perk Scorch Hook Floods of Rage, which in my opinion is the better detection perk for Pig overall, because you find out where multiple survivors is at once. I say the worst perk for Clown is probably Bamboozle. You don't need... If you do it right, a survivor that's hindered, they cannot fast fall at all. We all know medium volts gives like the weirdest hits. The only problem with Clown is pallets. So Bamboozle's gonna guide survivors towards pallets more than windows. You want them more at windows than pallets. Bamboozle's just doing the opposite of what you want. The Spirit, the worst perk is probably Predator. Like Hag, I don't think she really has bad perks. However, Predator is more of like a training wheels perk for Spirit, and I feel like it can do the opposite because the scratch marks they play. Because the scratch marks they do appear closer together. However, advanced Spirit mains, they've said that it makes it harder to, sometimes for them it makes it harder to track. This is clearly like a training wheels perk. So if you took this off, you know, when you get better with Spirit, it could possibly feed you misinformation because you think a survivor is at a location that they're not at. Next is Legion. Legion, I'll say crowd intervention. Like Hillbilly, honestly, Legion, I say crowd intervention. Like I said, that perk makes you want to, it makes survivors want to split up. As a Legion, you definitely don't want this to happen. You want survivors to be as close as possible. Lethal Pursuer, again, Discordance, great picks for Legion. Corrupt Intervention is just going to do the opposite of what your power was meant to do. Plague will be perk Enduring. Plague will be the perk Enduring. When you're in, when the Plague drinks from the Corrupt Fountains, if she gets done by a pallet, she actually loses that power. The reason you don't want to do it for Plague is because survivors don't really try to. Again, survivors, they more or less pre-drop pallets against you. They don't really risk against you, especially if it's a the smart survivors. They're not gonna pre-drop pallets because they know you're gonna shoot over and hit them. A better perk, honestly, should be Bamboozle when you're not using the red power. Next is Ghostface. I say the worst perk for Ghostface is probably like Ghostface. There's probably like a lot of perks that don't work for Ghostface. If I had to say, it probably just perks that are. I'll probably say it's perks that are all damage, but you do the pressure. Because Ghostface, what you want is perks that pressure survivors. You want perks like Thin and Tremors, get survivors off gens. You want Sloppy Butcher, make them heal longer. So a bad perk for Ghostface is probably like Blood Echo, Phanophobia. These perks, you want to travel the whole map, hit a survivor, make him heal, or they suffer from this debuff, something like that. Suffer from this debuff, like that. Ghostface is all damage, no pressure. You can't be pressuring the whole map as Ghostface. No. The team has to be bad in order for that to even work. The team has to be bad in order for that to work. So a perk like Blood Echo, like Phanophobia, them perks are just not good for Ghostface. You don't have the mobility and you don't have the lethality in order to compete with what the perk requires you to do. For Demogorgon, honestly, it'd be Franklin's demise. The reason is because if a survivor, when a survivor they roll a window, if they have an item, you actually see it disappear. This means if it disappears, it's basically a confirmation that they are going to vault that window. So with Franklin's demise, you can't tell because you knocked it off, right? So you could be waiting. This normally happens at Shark. You could be waiting for a survivor. You think the survivor's gonna fake it, but the survivor actually went for the window. If you knew that, you wouldn't have got the down. But because you tried to react to what they do, you was too slow. Then obviously you got stunned because you hit the wall. With Franklin's demise, this is gonna happen more often because you can't tell. But with Franklin's demise, you can look at the item, react to the item, not the animation, and then get them before they fully vault the window. A bad perk for Oni, honestly, we say the best for last. Even though that's right now the best chase perk in the game, don't want that as Oni. Oni, you want as much survivors injured as possible. You don't need a snowballing perk unless it's like Infectious Fry. Say the best for last is not going to help you because you're a one-shot killer. You don't need that. You want to use your power as much as possible. Say the best for last is going to require you to use your power as least as possible. And you recovering a few frames earlier doesn't really make a difference to a one-shot killer. Deslinger, I'll say Monitoring Abuse. That's the worst part for him because obviously he's a 32 meter tear radius killer now, even though he's 110. So making him back to 24 meters will basically give him his original tear radius. The problem is, if you want to make Deslinger more quiet, it's better to give him a perk like Head's Plaything. In my opinion, that does everything Monitoring Abuse does and more. Deslinger is also a tall killer. He's not really stealthy to begin with anyway. So Monitoring Abuse is not going to help like that. There's not the benefit from Monitoring Abuse for Deslinger is it's not the same anymore. Pyramid Head, I say the worst perk for him is pretty much any Scorch Hook perk. I say the most common one is Pain Resonance. These perks you have to consistently hook. That's why. But sometimes with a Pyramid Head you just want a cage. In order to get consistent value for, perks like Pain Resonance, you have to consistently hook. With Pyramid Head, he can choose whether he wants to hook or cage. In some situation, time efficiency wise, it's just better to cage. Even for the Pain Resonance that's nearby, honestly. So it doesn't really matter. These perks want you to get hooks consistent because the Scorch Hook perks, obviously, they want you to get hooks consistently so you can get the most consistent value of the perk. But the thing is with Pyramid Head, he's the most inconsistent killer when hooking survivors because sometimes you just want a cage. It's better in the situation too. With Bly, like I said, with Bly, honestly, it's just like the other killers. Like, really, there's no perk that's bad on him. There's no like bad perk on Bly. That the perk itself is not bad. But if I had to say, Darkness Revealed. Darkness Revealed is when you open a locker any survivor that's 8 meters of a locker, you see that aura. The aura reading perks you want on Blight is perks that just tell you, like you're traveling and it just tells you someone's here. That's the type of perk you want. You want barbecue and chili, basically. You want barbecue and chili, you want lethal pursuer. That's the type of aura reading perks you want. You don't want a perk that's going to make you stand still in order for you to find out where survivors are. Blight can go like pretty much everywhere, left and right. You shouldn't be standing still, like unless you're in chase or like trying to kick. Like for a Blight, standing still for information, that's stupid. Like for a Blight, you shouldn't be standing still unless you're trying to kick a generator. Next is Twins. Twins, I would say the worst perks is Floods of Rage. This is just self-explanatory. This just says it by itself. Victor cannot see auras. Scorch Hook, Floods of Rage. You, as a killer, don't know when the survivors are going to unhook exactly. Therefore, if you're playing Victor and then the survivors unhook, you don't get value from this perk. It's just simple as that. A better perk is honestly barbecue and chili. Since you don't know, so the time that you finally get value from a Scorch Hook perk, you're gonna be more likely to get less of a reward that you actually should get. If you're playing Victor or you're distracted with something else, if you're playing Victor, since you can't see the aura, now you have to switch back to Charlotte, and then you have to spin around and then look, which can honestly waste your time. And obviously it's not smart to do if you're in chase with a survivor, which at least Floods of Rage would actually help you in the chase because you see survivor's aura for them few seconds. Trickster, I say his worst perk would be Starstruck. Starstruck, you need to catch up to survivors. As a 110 killer, that's just not happening. You also pretty much need a perk like Agitation, to increase his tear radius. Because he has a small tear radius as well. The reason why Starstruck is bad is because you should only be using Starstruck on killers that can make up the distance when this happens. It's just not happening. Trickster's 110 killer. The survivors will outrun you before you get a chance to hit them. This is not a perk that you use consistently, especially since Trickster doesn't have any built-in information like Doctor, or it's just like, he's fast enough like Wraith that he can just catch up and then one shot. This is not the perk for you. Nemesis is pretty much obvious, build of strength, you know why. Fastest pallet breaker in the game. You don't need a perk like this. This perk's gonna help you at your worst. What you want is perks that help you at your worst, but benefit you at your best. Build of strength is not gonna benefit you if you're having a good match as Nemesis. It's not happening. Pinhead is enduring. I'm gonna be honest, nobody slaps the pallet on Pinhead's head. Most people just pre-draw. I never see people hit pallets on Pinhead, and it's not consistent enough for you to bring a perk like this. When you bring a chase perk on Pinhead, you normally want is normally brutal strength for Bamboozle. Like it's normally like an obstacle in the way that you need to get rid of or get over before you can attack the survivor. That's the type of perk you want to do. Get over it fast so you can finally hit the survivor. And Endurance is just not going to help with that. With Artist, it's probably Jolt. Artist, you hit more special attacks than basic attacks. Therefore, Jolt's just not going to help you. Jolt's just not going to help you at all like that. In my opinion, you should only be using Jolt on killers that are M1 only. Like, Doctor, Freddy. You can use, I say only for killers that's like Pig, where their M2 is just not good. That's fine, but Artists, her birds are good enough that you can just use that. So they cover good. If a generator has progress near you, you pretty much know because you're firing birds at that location anyway. For Honorable, I say for Sadako, I'll say Bamboozle. Light Clown, your problem is pallets, not windows. You can deal with windows perfectly fine. If you have the brown add-on that makes you go invisible for longer, especially in Shack, you can come in Shack invisible, appear visible, and hit the survivor before they react. Because when you're invisible, your red light is also gone as well. Therefore, what you need to do is go get perks to deal with the pallets, and then you'll steamroll through the windows. Next is Dredge. Dredge, it'll probably be Monitoring Abuse. Dredge is good at catching survivors by surprise. Monitoring Abuse just lets you get closer, but the thing is with Dredge, you can get close to survivors. You don't need Monitoring Abuse. Because even if there's a locker that's not next to a gen, they probably already know where you are. So having Monitoring Abuse is not really necessary. Especially since Dredge is a naturally loud killer as well. When he moves, it's like he's having like multiple like When a dread moves, it's like very clear. Monotone abuse cannot stop that. In my opinion, I don't think Dredge needs any stealth perks. Like, at best, he has a locker right then and there, which is undetectable in the locker, so monotone abuse is useless. And then at worst, monotone abuse is probably not going to help. Again, you're a tall killer. You're also a naturally loud killer as well. So the survivor's probably going to know where you are regardless of terror radius. For Wesker, I can't lie, a lot of killers, they don't really have a lot of perks that are bad for them. I'll probably say the new perk, Game of Foot. When you're chasing your obsession, you gain a 5% haste for 10 seconds after breaking the pallet or breakable wall. Anyone who knows Wesker's power knows that you can just do this pretty much base kit when you're using Ouroboros. You just wait for like the second charge and then you just instantly beat on the survivor. Especially if you use your dash and then near the end of the dash, you hop the window as well. You be on the survivor's case in a couple of seconds. Chase perks on Wesker, probably like, you don't even need chase perk on Wesker, I'm gonna be honest. Like, except for like Bamboozle, I really guess. Aside from that, Wesker is perfectly fine in the chase. He doesn't need a perk to catch up when he can already catch up. There's a reason why he has a 40-meter terror radius. The Knight has Starstruck, but the thing is that Starstruck is, like I said, is only good for killers that have information, which the Knight does have, and mobility. There is a buff for the Knight that he gains haste when he places a guard down, but only when when the guard is far away from you. But the way you play Knight, Starstruck just does not align. You want to bother multiple people that are far away from you. So Starstruck's not going to help you with that because you can't reach them. That's why you got your power. So the power does the reaching for you. So you're not going to be able to one-shot nobody if they're all the way further away from you. The Skull Merchant, I'll probably say Floods of Rage. You pretty much like any detection perk's bad. You don't need detection perks on this killer. This killer will find everybody. This killer finds people dumb easy. Floods of Rage is just going to make you find that one person that you don't see. But like, there's so many other perks that you can be using instead. It's honestly better to use Chase or Regression perks for this killer. Just focus on getting the down and then just use your ability to find people. They cannot hide, especially if you just place a drone on a gen. Like, they will touch the generator and then they will touch the drone and then you'll find out where they are. You don't need information perks on the killer that can find people this easy.